half a day. And so I think this is probably one of the very exciting panels as the Department of Defense deals with logistics in the Indo-Pacific. Specifically, this panel, in putting this together, we looked at the discussion points, and that is strengthening Guam's defense supply chain and logistics ecosystem. And so the panel will examine the role of Guam as a logistics hub in the Indo-Pacific, focusing on strengthening the supply chain resilience for military and civilian needs. And some of the topics will include sourcing of materials, manufacturing capabilities, airport modernization, and public-private partnerships. So before I get into some of the questions, maybe a minute for everybody to introduce yourselves and let the audience know what you do and all that good stuff.
My name is Joseph Cruz. I was Caris Marine Corporation's president for 30 years until September last year, and now I'm just freelancing.
Roy Respicio, Port Authority of Guam.
That was 5 seconds. Patrick Balan, Vice President, General Manager for Matson and Guam. Just to kind of put things in context, how we see we can contribute to this discussion and everything that we're talking about this last couple of days. Matson's been an operator in the Pacific, serving the Pacific for the last 140 years. We first made our entry into Micronesia, providing service about 50 years ago. And then about 30 years ago, we finally laid down some roots in Guam to service Guam, the CNMI, and the rest of Micronesia. And in all of that time, our priority has always been to make sure we have reliable and consistent service into these islands. We were born of the islands. We're from Hawaii. We have operations in the U.S., but this is what we consider our home. And we've been known, over those years to build up that reputation for that reliable service. But recently, we've gone beyond that. We've been watching with great interest with all of this talk about the defense buildup and everything that's happening the last few years. And we've taken some steps to make investments to make sure we can meet the needs of not only the local communities, but that expected additional capacity required to handle everything that's going to happen, in terms of, and right now it's construction mainly, but make sure we have enough capacity to handle all of the needs, the current needs. And we've made investments in new vessels to be based here in the region. And we're looking through, this sort of dialogue to understand what other needs there are to be able to hopefully be part of that solution. So thank you for having us.
I brought my own gun.
Good.
Hello. All right, hey, good afternoon. I will not say half a day, but my name is Captain Pat Brown. I'm the commander of Defense Logistics Agency Indo-Pacific, headquartered in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. For those not familiar, I brought my cheering section. Not familiar, Defense Logistics Agency is a fourth estate entity, meaning we're not rolled up under any one of the services. Our boss, Lieutenant General Simmerly, reports directly to the Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sustainment, so not rolled up within the services. We are the combat support agency, meaning we provide common logistics support across all the services. So if you think about like tires, right? The Air Force doesn't have to get their tire and the Army gets their tire, and we're all competing for the same. So DLA kind of rolls all of that up into one. My job as the Indo-Pacific commander is to coordinate the efforts of the 6, soon to be 5 if you're familiar with DLA, major subordinate commands. DLA Land and Maritime and DLA Aviation will combine into one giant Class 9 organization here over the course of the next year. So, the other one is energy, troop support, distribution, and disposition. If you formerly remember, DERMO is what people call that. So those are all, I coordinate the efforts of all those entities, those MSCs across the AOR to support Compaparo's strategy and across the Indo-Pacific and how we posture DLA to do that and support the effort.
Thank you. My name is John Canance. I'm the executive manager for the Guam International Airport Authority. It is the only commercial airport here on the island, but we also play a vital role as we are the lead airport in the region It supports all the different islands that are around us. We're also very important because we are a spoke to Anderson Air Force Base. So a lot of the you have the hub and spoke. So we're kind of like one of the airports that they lead out to, and we have on a monthly basis support a lot of the Anderson operations because there's a lot of diverts that will come to our airport. So that's where it's vital. Lucky we got DLA out here because they're going to be vital to us as we move forward to try and do our underground fuel line or joint fuel line with DOD. And that's part of our one of our initiatives with the CMCC Vera that we're trying to move forward. When I first became the executive manager, when I tried to pose that process with NAVFAC, I couldn't get past the program coordinator stage. Now it's up to the CMCC level, and it's getting traction. So thank you for being here, and maybe we can have some discussion, sir. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Andrew Winternitz. It says up there, I'm the Principal Director for East Asia Policy. That was my former job. About 2 or 3 months ago, I took on a new job. I'm now the Acting Deputy Assistant Secretary of War for Defense Continuity and Mission Assurance. And under my mission assurance role, a lot of the topics in this panel fall under that. It's actually kind of funny. Last year, I was out here in Guam. I had a great meeting with the governor and lieutenant governor, and they raised a lot of these issues with me then. And I said, well, I'll take them back, and I wish I could help you, but those aren't really my issues. Well, careful what you wish for. Now they're my issues. So I'm very glad to be on this panel. Thank you for having me.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And so we're going to open some of the questions here first with our ports. And can you speak to the criticality of the Port Authority and the airport in terms of modernization as it relates to supporting the supply chain challenges in the broader Western Pacific? So this is twofold. And then what are the types of public-private partnerships have been considered or are in motion to address your modernization efforts?
Thank you very much. My intro was very short by design because I wanted to use that time to fold into the answer to this question. Modernization in the Port of Guam's case is not just for efficiency, but it's for survival. 90% of the goods coming into Guam come to the Port Authority of Guam. And in addition to having a very strong, dedicated, and happy workforce at the port, we also have the reality of aging gantry cranes. They're 42 years old. We have wharves that are in the process of being rehabilitated, and we have facilities that also are being rehabilitated. And so we're working on that for 3 years in a row. We submitted a grant to MARAD to replace all 3 gantry cranes by way of a grant. First 2 years we were denied because of the Buy American requirement, and through the governor and even lieutenant governor's advocacy, even I've had the privilege of staff the governor meetings at the Pentagon, and when she told the high DOD officials, high-ranking officials at the DOD, that if the port had to use port funds, of course it comes with consequences. We use port funds through bond financing, we have to raise the tariffs, and that's going to be an impact on the community for something that should be mitigated by all the throughput that's going to be coming in through all the military construction. And when we had a meeting in Indo-PACOM a few years ago, they've told us that with their analysis, they believe that we have enough terminal space. There was a $50 million port modernization project that we were able to successfully complete. If build-up 1 happened when it said it would happen, we would be okay with the cranes. But because of the delay, and the cranes are in the second lifespan, that's why we had that challenge. And so the governor said that if it's port funds, and if China-made crane came in as the lowest, most responsible bidder, we would have to buy from China. So they asked us again, you're gonna buy from China? And the governor said, if the China-made crane is the lowest, most responsive, responsible bidder, the port will have no choice. Statutorily, we'd have to buy from China. By then I was thinking, well, Governor, we're going to get arrested for treason. But then our response was, but if the color of money showed that it was the DOD funds, it was merit funds, but the unique circumstance we are in, they don't manufacture gantry cranes in the United States. But if there was a Buy American waiver requirement, long story short is, through all the advocacy, and I know that things don't happen by happenstance, I know DOD played their hand in it, Merit was tracking this as well. We finally got the Buy American requirement, and Merit officials are tracking this. We submitted a grant again, and hopefully January, they'll make a decision for our grant application. So DOD folks in the room, it's just one phone call to Marriott to use the whole of government approach to nudge your sister agency for our grant. So we got a $22 million grant from the RAISE grant from Marriott to rehabilitate the wharves. And most recently, we're in a pre-award through our 3-year efforts and the Office of Economic Adjustment, the OLCC. We're in the pre-award stage. We haven't been formally awarded. It's about a $6 million grant to upgrade the F1 fill pier. That's our remaining fill pier. So that's an example of a public-public partnership. We had our oversight chairman talk this morning about the dollar-for-dollar offset with Black Construction for the glass breakwater, something that he supported, something the governor and lieutenant governor supported. We didn't have to give discounted on our leases. We kept the statutory lease rate. Our board, and Mark Mendiola is here, our board of director. We, at our board, agreed that the Port Authority is not in the fill business, so they issued a resolution authorizing us to go out for a P3 to see what kind of public-private partnership is available through that route. So there are opportunities. H-Wharf, Admiral Nicholson at the time talked about dredging H-Wharf up to 40 feet. We have a port readiness plan that provides a catalog to DOD to see what kind of investments can be made in the port, because for the last several years we've been saying that if the port's not ready, then the military will not be ready. Thank you.
John?
Thank you. The airport, we are looking currently, plus the next couple of years, about $103 million worth of airport modernization and getting the airport safe and secure. We're looking at our cargo aprons, right, our terminal aprons are being rehabilitated this time. That's about $41 million worth of construction. We just got approved and we're waiting for our notice to proceed on our terminal roof. That's going to be replaced with the ability to put solar panels on top to help us with our energy costs that's there. And as far as the cargo apron, we're extending it out. Our plan is to extend it out to where the cargo facility is at right now, so the cargo planes can go and park right in front of the cargo apron so that they can deliver their supplies and goods instead of being up at the main airport. So we're doing a lot of modernization. I talked about the joint fuel line. We have a lot of exercises that are going on with DOD, Reforpack, Violent Shield, Cope North, and a lot of diverts that come to our airport. And it only makes sense because the joint fuel, the fuel line right now for DOD goes right through our facilities, right on our airport property. And Lieutenant Governor was one of the main folks to push for this, and that's where we're at today. And hopefully we can push that can down the road. We were able to get the legal read from DOD that it can happen. Now we need to make sure that we go in and try and push it forward with DLA and hopefully with DOD or DOW. So it only makes that much more sense to do that. So we can operate, if any DOD jets or planes come in, we can refuel them right there instead of trucking in the fuel.
So are you saying that your discussions on the fuel access or the dual use has sort of advanced a little bit, and there's more higher discussion from the CMCC?
Definitely. I mean,
Okay.
before we weren't even given we were just going, yes, yeah, and then it doesn't go further. But now it's at the level with the governor and the admiral, and of course up further, because it did go up to Washington, D.C. to see, is it legally viable to do this project?
Yeah.
And we got the response back that it could happen. We just need to work the logistics out.
Okay. So I want to transition to the private sector, but I think that the Department of War could also weigh in. And so the question is, what challenges does the private sector face in trying to meet the needs and requirements of the Department of War and the community for logistics and supply chain issues in the Western Pacific? Joe?
From an industry standpoint, I think one of the things that we're experiencing more so recently is the types of cargo that's moving is different. 5 years ago, the nature of cargo movements in Guam was purely containerized, but with the development of civil projects, not only on Guam but continuing, we're seeing a lot more aggregate movements. In addition, as we see more exercises happen, we're seeing different types of cargo moving. We're seeing fuel, equipment, and other supplies moving. So from a private sector standpoint, I think what would be helpful is if we understand what the government requirements are, and if there's a way we can consolidate everybody's needs and identify what those are now, and so we can prepare not only our assets, but the people that we need to support it. Another challenge in the private sector, of course, as previously mentioned, is workforce. As the needs for more assets is required, we're going to need more crew members. We're going to need more skilled workers to support maintenance and repair requirements for assets. And of course, as we all know, Guam lacks those capabilities. As a bridge, we're using, some of us on the skilled repair side, we use H2 workers, but we need to start localizing that and training our workforce to be more skilled. Similarly, in the case of licensed professionals, i.e. mariners, we need to start developing more mariners because, as Patrick mentioned, as Matson expands in the region and they need more assets, we're going to need more people to support those assets. So people is one of those other challenges as far as meeting the expectations of DoD relative to the market.
Yeah, I just want to add on to what Joe said, and I said it earlier. It's just trying to understand the needs, and as we go around and talk to everybody. I mean, we talk to our customers for sure, but we also try to talk to the military leadership, right? The operational units. I mentioned we talked to Macy. She's a good source of information, and we just try to understand what the needs are, but. We realize it's you can't just talk to one person and they have all the answers or all the information. There's so many things going on. There's so many different departments and branches. It's massive, and you really need to go and talk to a lot of people to try and paint the picture of what that need looks like. And we kind of know where we need to go. We need to go out to the islands. We're Tinian, Palau, Yap. We've moved DoD cargo to Pohnpei even. We're going to Kwajalein already on a monthly basis, but it's what else? What else? And it's this newer type stuff that's big and bulky and long, and you can't put it in a container. So that's why we're thinking, okay, we'll get barges, we'll get the types of modes of transportation that will work, but we need to know when, how much, how frequent, and then what comes after, right? Is there any sustainment needs after things are built and put in place? What do you need to sustain it? So it's just trying to get information and trying to paint that picture so that we can make our plans and help support.
And so, Captain, do you want to
Yeah, I just wrapped
maybe some of the challenges that Department of War is facing with regard to, the
I was going to speak on behalf of my public sector brethren here.
Okay, great.
And just note that the frustrations that I know that they deal with are the levels of clearances sometimes that you need to be able to get those requirements, right? Oh, I can't tell you that, it's classified, or those kind of things that we run into often. And then once you do get that, let's assume you've got mariners and assume you've got clearances. Now it's the convoluted procurement process that goes along with that for you to be able to do business with us as we talk about the fuel and those things, and how do you go about doing that. And then the big one is, from my perspective, what I see is defining our need, giving you the requirement, but then today's budget line item is often tomorrow's budget line sacrifice that gets cut. So without the private sector being able to have a predictable funding stream, it's hard for the partnership to work out in a way that's beneficial.
Vera, I just wanted to jump in and say that the industry is doing just what you said in your question every single day, and the port is at the center of all that. And I want to keep things in the proper context, and NOAA really should be part of this panel as well. And we can't lose sight about the vulnerability of how things really are. When we get visited several times a month by the logistics folks at the Department of War, they tell us every single briefing, all things are fine. Our cargo's going through seamlessly without a hitch. All these specialized equipment are going through, all the containers, no problem at all. But it's the planners and the Department of War side that understand that if one gantry crane goes down, it's going to set the whole military readiness program by about 4 years. And so we can't operate when it's a crisis. Now is the time to take action. And from the port's perspective, we've been operating within the governor's strategic framework. She put out this strategic framework through this call for an economic adjustment committee, where she laid out all of Guam's needs. So it's not just what GPA needs, the 1.5 billion. It's not just a public hospital need that the governor is advocating for, because all of those things are very important. If you look at the port's master plan, if you look at the look ahead that we put out, we start off with what does Guam need to mitigate for the impact of the military buildup. Governor even said, Roy, you put in there public hospital, you put in there the power, the water, the roads, the hospital, the airport, the port, it's everything. And so this fragmented approach is kind of, I think, what hurts us internally in terms of our messaging. And so it's everything. It's anywhere from $60 million for cranes upwards to, and then this economic adjustment draft that we saw that we were part of, it's very comprehensive and it's very impactful, and I think that's the way to go. And so when you ask the question, it's more like a call to action, and the question itself is, and the answer to that question is, it's the approach in how we have the private sector industry rally around the messaging to the Department of War in how these mitigation efforts need to be made across the board.
So you're like life cycle
Yeah.
logistics, right?
Let me
From here to here and everyone in between.
Yeah, if I
Mr.
could just pick up
Yeah.
on what you were just saying there. Let me zoom out, if you will, for a couple seconds on sort of more the strategic context. I'm sure it's already been touched upon here during the 2 days of this forum, but I think it's important to really focus on that, and then I'll drill down toward and sort of dovetail on where you were going there. So at the outset, the president of our country has made it clear that his administration is going to achieve peace through strength by putting America first. He's focused on reestablishing deterrence and building the capabilities required to fight and win in the Pacific if needed. And Guam, and let's not forget CNMI as well, are the tip of America's spear in the Pacific. And both have this geographic position much closer to Beijing than to Hawaii, which is key to supporting both air and naval operations in the Western Pacific region. I was here in March with Secretary Hegseth when he visited Guam, and he said, and I quote, "Any attack on these islands is an attack on the United States, and the United States will meet any such attack with the appropriate response." And so that's the strategic outset that we have to look at this. And I really thank our partners here in Guam for working with the department to strengthen the resilience of the civilian infrastructure. We have to modernize, we have to mitigate the vulnerabilities that underpin our military operations, and we need to be able to do that so that we improve our lethality and our readiness. The port infrastructure, of course, is vital to not only the Department of War, but of course also the people of Guam, and to the buildup of our operations here on the island, which is continuing at pace. And we know already that our adversaries are already targeting the island's critical infrastructure. So one of the things that my office works on, in addition to defense critical infrastructure, the Department of War is also the sector risk management agency for the defense industrial base. And this means that we very closely follow the supply chain dependencies, we follow logistics and other considerations that impact the industrial base resilience. And I think this probably resonates with many of you here in this room and maybe the other folks on the panel as well, because regardless of the sector, some of the challenges that we face and the origins of those threats are the same. And so what the department is doing is leveraging our interagency partners to foster a whole of government approach to assisting infrastructure owners and operators. And each critical infrastructure sector has a designated sector risk management agency. And so, for example, for our nation's ports, that would be the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Transportation, which are both co-sector risk management agencies for transportation. And so we have been working with them to try to figure out some of the issues here back in Washington to try to make things easier to get at some of these bureaucratic hurdles that you were just, I think, describing there. And so I'll stop there, but that's sort of from the bigger picture what we're trying to do. And when we hear some of these issues, it is incumbent upon my office and upon my leadership to make sure that we're able to resolve them, because ultimately that's what we're going to be judged upon if our adversaries take the unfortunate step of triggering a war in the Western Pacific. Thank you. Thank you,
sir. And this was a question that came in later. And so maybe, Mr. Assistant Secretary, if you could answer, do you think that the changes in U.S. trade policy, including new tariffs, enhance or constrain opportunities for the businesses on Guam? If you're able to answer that, that'd be great.
Yeah, no, thanks. I appreciate that. And look, I am not a trade expert, nor am I a tariff expert. So I really don't have a lot of insight on that, nor on how it's affecting the local economy here. That's not something that I've focused on. I do think that when we look at the trade here, the way that commerce flows in and out of Guam, we have to also focus on the fact that the type of materials that we need for our defense buildup flow in and out the same way. And so we have to make sure that we have those paths and those abilities to be able to do that. And so as the supply chain and the resilience of the supply chain, that's what we're focused on in the Department of War. Thanks.
Mattson, do you want to take a stab at that one, or?
Well, I'm not a trade expert either, but...
So no trade experts. Okay, we'll move on. I have one more question. So as you know, Guam is developing its own additive manufacturing center. How can that capability help address the supply chain challenges for Guam and the region? And DoD, you could answer, how does it help DoD as well? But if anyone would like to take on that question, Joe?
I can answer. I can try to answer. So anyhow, considering the age of our equipment, we have, as Rory alluded to earlier, we have 43-year-old cranes. And if you look at most of our equipment on Guam, we have a lot of vintage equipment. And considering a lot of the original equipment, manufacturers of that equipment probably may not carry some of those spare parts, I think fundamentally that's one of the main benefactors of additive manufacturing in Guam, because we can actually create the part locally and install it locally. And even with our remoteness in the event of war, we'll be able to do that on site and have to worry about logistics or supply chain speed bumps to get critical parts to Guam in the event we need to do major any emergency repairs. So from a spare parts availability standpoint, due to the age of equipment and our remoteness, I think that's where additive manufacturing provides value.
Okay. So my opinion on additive manufacturing, and I think it's not an opinion, I think it's well known, that the benefits that it brings, right? You have that, you have one production line that produces many items, right? So you have the economies of scale with that. You don't have to set up a separate production line for each thing. It's also highly mobile. So when we look at doing operations across the second island chain, we look at if even if we just talk Palau, Saipan, something, and there's something down there that you need to fix or whatever, and you have the capability to pick that supply chain up, that 3D printer, if you will, and take it down there and get that fixed. I think that's a benefit of it as well. And as I often, in my travels around the AOR, part of what I do is try to find ways and places for those high criticality items, high criticality need, long lead time items for industry to produce. Where can we get them produced closer? Where can we move the means of production closer to the point of consumption? And I think with additive manufacturing, being able to piece those things out is a definite force enabler in that regard. So, yeah.
Anyone else? No?
There's a very public, real life example of additive manufacturing, and Astro America has been at the forefront of this initiative. And how the Department of War can help is just be a consumer of what they can produce. This is a public law that I believe Senator Barnes was able to pass, and the governor, lieutenant governor had an executive order, and it has several agencies take the lead. And so the idea of transshipment, well, the port does transshipment of goods, containers, but it's just, right now, it's just the containers coming in on larger vessels and then put it on feeder vessels and going into the other islands. But when you have additive manufacturing, this is where you can start to assemble things on Guam coming from other parts of the world, and then it becomes made in America, have it made in America compliant, then get sold somewhere else. But in the area of 3D printing, this is something that the Port Users Group was very involved in. They met with this company when they did their feasibility study. They looked at, as Joe said, some of the parts that they can print. It's very fascinating if you just look at what they're able to produce and the kind of study they put together. And I know that the governor, lieutenant governor had meetings with these groups, and so the potential is there. This is an industry that can be done on Guam, and there's about 600 acres of property at the Port Authority that can provide for these warehousing, provided they pay the statutory commercial lease rate for that kind of, but then there's a dollar for dollar offset that if it benefits the port or the community, we can be open to talking about some kind of opportunity there. Thank you, Vera. Thanks.
Thank you. With the Public Law 38-21, hopefully we're going to be attracting manufacturers to come to the island to set up shop. We're going from 5 years to 50 years in as far as leasing our facilities or leasing our property. We definitely have a lot of property to give out there, or to potentially bring in factories to set up shop on Guam. One of the ones that has visited us is we have a company that wanted to build their factory here to build airport equipment, ground equipment, so that they can manufacture it here, put it all together. All the parts that they get from the different Asia markets, bring it here to Guam, manufacture it in Guam, assemble it, and then start to divvy it out to all the other airports of the region, and also in the U.S.
Okay. Well, I think we're going to wrap up here, but if you want to do maybe a 1-minute parting message on, maybe supply chain logistics issue or opportunity, go ahead.
From an industry standpoint, I think with the buildup, it helps provide additional scale into the market for cargo movement, and scale helps costs. So as projects evolve and cargo starts to move, it provides for better economies for operators to provide assets to support the demand.
I just want to thank the organizers of this conference, the governor, lieutenant governor, and the folks that put this event together. And I think if there's going to be any communique or any action item, as we keep saying, follow the governor's lead. You won't go wrong. Certainly, it goes without saying. There's an economic adjustment committee process. We all know where that's at, but the Department of War can push really hard. And to see that the port infrastructure, like power, water, roads, the hospital, those are all critical infrastructure, and those are all what is going to make national defense very successful here in this part of the world. And so thank you for allowing us to be part of this very, very important discussion. Thank you. Thank you, Vera. Thank you, too.
Yeah, I just want to echo that sentiment, and thank you for organizing this event. I'm so glad to see the turnout. I'm so honored to be part of this panel. And one thing, there's a lot of themes that we've talked about this past couple of days. One thing that sticks out for me is just the collaboration, right? And in order to collaborate, you need to know who to talk to. You need to know people. You need to have relationships. That's something that's pretty germane to us at Matson. But to be able to pull all these people together, and I've made new connections this last couple of days, and I'm sure that goes for everybody. And we just need to continue to leverage this and continue this, and good things will come.
What he said. I thank you for putting this on, ma'am, and for the rest of the panelists as well. I'm just honored to be sitting up here, and that someone thought I was esteemed enough to sit up here with this much institutional knowledge. But echo the sentiment about the collaboration with each other. You come to these things and you pick up a little bit of information from this guy and a little bit from that gal, and those things, and you kind of put it together to form a picture. And then, lo and behold, the person who can help you with your problems right here over your other shoulder. So it's a great opportunity. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Vera. Thank you, Governor, Lieutenant Governor, for putting this together. What we have here, we're building partnerships, we're building relationships so that we can move our agenda forward, get our initiatives forward. We at the airport are ready for the future and building for the future to make sure that we are ready to support the supply chain issues that we need to do, and future for DOD and the state of Guam's collaboration at the airport.
Great. Well, building resilience really is a team effort across the Joint Force, across the USG, and in partnership with the government of Guam and its people. We all have to be rowing together in the same direction. And in that way, working together, we're going to increase the security of the island, and we will build peace through strength. I really thank the governor, lieutenant governor, and everybody who put together this panel and this forum. It's been really great. I honestly think that Guam is a real leader in civ-mil cooperation in how we defend the homeland. And so I'm very appreciative of all the efforts being done here and taken here. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. And so I think we're going to open it up for a question or two, but I will say real quick that I think Governor and Lieutenant Governor, after all this discussion and a lot of discussion about the EAC and having the Department of War convene, I think we can convene it. We'll just convene it. And so stay tuned. We're going to be brave. But I think we have a couple of questions.
Yes, I'll start. Yes, my name is Ed Camacho. I'm with the Commonwealth Bureau of Military Affairs. I'm looking at the sign up, your logistics ecosystem and supply chain. In this whole process, we haven't talked about one of our most active invader to our islands, whatever island you want to. I would call them the invasive species. We still got some good eating coconuts up in the Northern Mariana Islands, but except Rota right now, we're losing that quality. Some of these things, I'm going to call them squirmers. Well, the brown tree snake is, we still got birds up there too. So we're hoping that we're doing something as carriers and members of the transportation world arena to prevent those brown tree snakes, coconut, rhino beetles, and what have you. So they're destroying the economy. I mean, yeah, eventually the economy. So, and I call these little things insurgents, because they're already here. They're already operating, and the smaller they are, the harder they are to see and detect. So what are we doing as a group of partners to prevent the ecosystem from being destroyed any further?
Well, thank you for the question. So I think it would be best answered by the Department of Agriculture and Guam Customs. But let me just tell you what I know they're doing, or that they've done in collaboration with the government of Guam entirely. I think about 10 years ago, there was a law passed to create an invasive species council, which is made up of those two government agencies I just mentioned. And in that, they developed a plan, and they developed a budget to fund all of the mitigation efforts to prevent invasive species entering the island, and also to deal with what's already here. You mentioned a few of them. And so there's a fee that's been put on to cargo that comes in through the marine port. And that fee was designed to fund this invasive species council and all the activities that it was designed to do. I can't go into detail about all of those things. It's just to assure you that there is this council in place, and we have a part to play in it. The ocean carriers, the port of Guam, because the fee is collected through all the marine cargo transported into Guam.
Okay, I got that. Thank you. It seems like every time we create a council, it's just prolonging the problem, but those invaders are still coming in. So my point is, we only have so many dogs and so many people, and they're working overtime. And who's paying for that overtime? And are we going to be able to get more technical capacity and more resources to prevent those? I know for a fact that the Department of War is doing everything it can to clean everything before it even leaves the gate, right? But once it gets onto those boats, those carriers, it seems like something else gets on those carriers that were not sanitized, right? And then they go to places, and I'm not just talking coming to Guam, I'm talking about coming from somewhere else, going to other islands. So my point is, what are we doing at the port of embarkation to prevent any bugs from leaving the whatever place they're coming from? I'm experiencing this a lot up in the Sinai already, and those ships don't just come from Guam, they're coming from all over. So what we do is just return to sender, right? We just send them back, and that's money. So what we're trying to do is not put the burden on the point of debarkation. We don't want to put the burden to fix the problem where the cargo is heading to. We want to fix that problem before it leaves where it's coming from. So I'm just asking that we need to look at that further, because we want to preserve our pristine environment. The word ecosystem out there is not just for the logistics system, but for the invasive species. So my point is, we're not just worried about other invaders. We're talking about the littlest things that we can't see. So if you could help us out with that, appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. I know we have one more. Do we have one more?
I just want to.
We have one more question in the back.
I just want to quickly say thank you for your question. We do have some protocols that if they do catch some invasive species within the vessel, that we stop operations. We call Department of Customs at their Biosecurities Division. Most recently, they've identified a black widow spider, and that was a milestone event. And so they're very strict protocols, and so there's a system in place.
Okay, next question and last question.
Half a day. My name's Ariana from the Office of Senator Perez. I know this issue comes up often, so I was just wondering if the panel could provide some insight. As far as I know, there hasn't been any movement to revoke or amend the Jones Act. So I was wondering if you had any suggestions for how we can mitigate the impacts of the Jones Act, such as higher shipping costs. Thank
I
you.
guess that's a question for me. Well, let me just start by saying the Jones Act doesn't apply in Guam. And I know a lot of the cost of goods are attributed to that. Let me just tell you my perspective on it in terms of, I guess, the challenges of being where we live. We're in the middle of this big, beautiful ocean, and it's pretty far away from a lot of things. Because of where we're located, we're not along the usual trans-Pacific routes that a lot of ships take. The big, really big ships. We're pretty big. We're the biggest ships, I think, container ships that come into Guam. But then there's some really big ones out there, right? And Joe had mentioned, it's important to have economies of scale. I think we're kind of in the sweet spot with the kind of ships we bring in. And you would hopefully try to get even bigger ships to get even better economies of scale. But Guam also, not just the geography, but Guam also has a challenge of, even though there's all this people focused on what we're doing here, relatively speaking, the cargo volume in Guam is very small when you compare it to those really big ships where you have that economies of scale. And then the buying power comes into play too. It's not a shipping concern, but a lot of our customers have to compete with other customers or suppliers cater to, and given the volumes that we have out here, over a small island, it's a challenge negotiating the best prices sometimes. And I think these are just some of the challenges that we face in the realities of living out here.
Thank you.
To add on Jones Act, so Jones Act doesn't apply to Guam. What Jones Act is Jones Act means there's a U.S. built vessel operated by a U.S. crew. In Guam, vessels can come to Guam that are non-U.S. built but U.S. flag and crewed by U.S. So between two U.S. domestic points, i.e. U.S. West Coast and Hawaii, a vessel operating to those areas must be a Jones Act vessel by law. Vessels coming from the West Coast to Guam does not have to be. So, in context, the Jones Act doesn't apply. It applies to vessels operating between U.S. domestic points, and Guam is not considered a U.S. coastwise domestic point.
And we're not the only option, right? We are a carrier that comes from the United States, but there is another carrier that comes from the United States. There are other carriers that come from Asia, and there are those options already existing here on the island.
Okay.
Thank you for the question.
Okay. Well, that's a wrap. Thank you guys so much, and we'll go into a networking business.